Hello, branches of government. Hello, species value niche system. I know this will work. If if it doesn't work, it can only do good because it's. I'm giving you this idea. In other words, it's an industry where people need with their devalued, forsaken because fact cheaping nature is raised. Each position of it reliant upon pseudo positive, and therefore reliant upon sensibilities maintained with the fact cheaping nature of volume as criminal and ceaseless nature that can't defend its styles of reactions to the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And so they're blaming predicate acts caused by this organized crime breaching methods in semi-ancient times, blaming the causes of it on other things, others than self. They're maintaining groups as fact cheaping nature fake sides. They're isolating and hurting you, or they make you group because they have a crime methods recorded. Even if you talk to a family member or something about what they don't understand or know about, and then if you attach them to fake words, that's what they do. They're using the right to lie criminally, offensive evidence reception crime tied to offensive evidence reception like witch trials. Those were victims. Those judges associated with witch trials, but they were victim predators because they had to attach things to groups. They didn't know how. No one knew it to not by accident. Everyone was forced to hide how nations were group suits and ties. Nature of the foundation of that, all natures of industry, without everyone blaming other things other than self, all positions contained in as fact nature in a breaching organized crime method that invested all to styles needing to blame what nature's demonstrating. No, it's good. We have criminally foreign influence. This plan is to. I'll put a link in the information section to the video. That is the picture of one of those stacking of people that we inherited as the pathology of infrastructure forced with the fact cheating nature of slavery, not just extortion of our founders, their identity stolen, and not even overtly and insidiously glorified with the nature of child abuses that each person, including and especially regarding the branches in the sciences stewards, are child abused. The same way the overt criminal enterprises are and maintained used to keep the defenses of mistreatments of the group. And then live progressions, roles with all private ties to that needing to hide those live progressions, facilitated to it. That's the breaching organized crime. Because once you have that facilitated, then you have people needing to pretend, oh, they're reliant upon all that private ties, like prisons, whole bunch of nations, intercultural suits and ties, psychology racket roles, crime methods associated with that, against our own Russians, pretending people have conspiracy theories by forging names, switching names, torturing people. No, torturing people since before their problems with the ISIS in the Iraq War in reaction to the Trade Center and the wars before that. Because we have forced grouped nations tied to a fact cheating nature organized crime method that is also simultaneously not letting into what is true honesty interpret the first part of the Quran, interpret the first part of the Old Testament, show it so as they have prayer only in relationship to what's going to just exploit identities of the ground, ignore what's native pure, and gathers round, but not these ways, so force the way, leaf of IDs. I'm not just talking tactically denatured. There's a denatured relationship to nature designed to keep negative. So, in other words, we make a gaming system. We draw what is unfathomable like that. You see, I draw what everyone's not going to speak about. And so, they're going to say, oh, we make compensations for all the negative, where the laws are too stacked against those people. They're worse than entrapment on a mass scale. And see, this is all nations at once, because this is, again, a method that is completely a fact cheaping nature organized crime method. It knew that now it knew then. Our founders knew that there were a whole bunch of nations, but they couldn't talk about it. They had to pretend that everyone had to pretend to the theater that it was England. In other words, they have to pretend, oh, we're talking in the local, whatever, and they have to blame. No, this is an identity organized crime method. This forced nations to be grouped and to value that, knowing that nature itself would show that and how we're supposed to be grouped. We're bonded, grouped another way, and these ways shows negative value nature progressions. For example, mountains, the top of them, water. For example, this is peripheral, but mountains on top. If to build that, you could build a plane that's going to go over a mountain where they have the snow, which is above the clouds even. But we could build a dome, some kind of a dome, because you around it, and then share it. We could do whole things if we work as a species, realizing this not the one identity of value progression as lead. It's not if you glorify a word, no, everything, every complete identity of value, even the name of a god or a messenger of the modern religions, know that it came about after international science was already criminally re-engineered. The ancient republic, the nature of sophistication that came before all the organized crime, self-defended roles, private, overt criminal enterprises, natures of militaries and things like that, all share placing natures of value, nature systems, left self-value. You can't divide that. So at the same time, still need them. Still don't have enough jobs. Still everyone has to eat. Everyone has to pay their things. We're in a value nature sick. That's what we have to understand. Same way, we just call this the bottom, the species. We're in and have a revolution at once, not against people, things like that. Against show we put forth this thing. Like for example, that's we draw the five unfathomably hard, but known natures of relationship to nature that are also, because all positions of the human fact should be nature have this non-distinctly impositions upon them. And see, this is designed to be a pathology where everyone was going to say, "Oh yeah," but and that's going to be what they call debate or argument. And in that is our sequence shifts, and within that is a quality of fact treatment nature that can't defend roles with that active every moment, only let realized, and also at the same time from what it exploits that mass identity natures of identity theft roles bonded, methods bonded, socially with for example, it's how easily it is to be facilitated to it. Just in context, for example, we'll examine what people say. Well, forgettable. In other words, so we draw. Now we make the web this website. In other words, instead of paying for a weapon, you have an industry right there. The people outside these locations that are also forsaken and the homeless, we attach them to what can be controlled by the people, in housing at least, and them to a gaming system that is with this native plan, this native theme. See, this divided Native Americans from Native Americans. It divided the human fact treatment nature to exploit that, not only actively with every position sustained, but with that sustained was lie progressions. We're standing lie progression cover up nature's needs and styles of logic, no. Of psychology, no. Of pseudo ratiocination pretended to be worse than pseudo ratiocination, but as criminal decisions nature pretended to be real positive. Positives value by the value nature system that is perfect. That is why each moment is timeless, forever nature. Only the extent of it is debatable. See, when we have this, the reactions to this, all victims distinctly and non-distinctly. This is also a fact sheet nature-wise, where the branches individually grouped and together, they were already long criminally acting with overt criminal enterprises, natures of them not even realized, methods of them not even realized, motivations with that not even realized. Stayed where and as on how quote good people. See, look, they say white. How many different physical cultures have white skin? Russia, Asia nations, whole bunch of Asians and nations are Asian, all white skin. Russia. See, they put white because when they made that fact cheating nature racket and laws, nature of laws against everyone. If they taught speaking about learned at CCSU, Central Connecticut State University, if they were found out to be speaking about building infrastructure outside of internation monitored database relationships, they hurt them and their whole families. See, these internation monitored database relationships, those natures of laws, that was juxtaposed with the color then, because that was a tool to maintain the natures of peace in relationship to war, in relationship to the nature of extortion of kings and of states and areas simultaneously, distinctly and non-distinctly, and connected methodically. This is the organized crime method of the devil. Even if it's wrong, it's better than, this is, there are proofs that this is organized crime method is what American history is really about. And they're hurting a lot of people, pretending motions and pretending, we have physical delusions also with the people with criminal foreign influence, fact treatment nature, with psychology. Now these are people with badges too, long involved with the integrity of courts, with them thinking for them criminally. They're involved with a whole bunch of natures of crimes with their locations on off campuses, on off of all natures and ages connected, criminal uses of that. This is because they're also intermilitary originally, still criminally foreign influence. That's why they're involved with all the with shootings, with the areas, all the untimely deaths, things written off as suicide, probably not even suicide, because their involvements with illegal body dumping spots, identity thefts, rackets with the policing of all the legal body dumping spots, with a fact sheet in nature where they investigate things, use those investigators to keep people in criminally foreign influence collusion with verbal federal crimes, evidential, offensive evidence crimes tied to ones in cases with criminal uses of depositions, ones already with areas because that's sustained originally still. So in other words, then there's no automatic income, and it's private, but it's owned by the. In other words, it's owned to for the means to simultaneously admit what we're in a torture trap. That's, see, this is more worse than torture. In other words, while there are mass homeless, while there are mass natures of impositions pretended not realized, mass pseudo positive natures reliant upon quote the unquote the perfect world. See, these are people associated with foreign and domestic recorded worse than criminal incompetence with free speech and identity of the law originally and still, forced to be criminal and citizen's nature entertained, forced to be quality of fact cheap in nature, not allowed to be to use correlation natures simultaneously inherent active and progressive means with sequence true. And what is beyond that true always, gaining too. So in other words, this will liberate everyone, all your fact cheating nature impositions, because I know you guys are victims. I know you guys are blaming the wrong things, others, and selves, and have been, and that has been exploited. That has been recorded roles with sustained offensive mass evidence reception predator roles. Uses of online policing, online platforms, people trying to work with the system. They say, oh, that's why this is the perfect world. But they're exploiting anomaly in that. They have behavior rackets associated with identity theft rackets, whole bunch of them bonded methods by this associated with what they try to fit into campuses. All that's interscience. So this is what's interscience is only one thing alone, which is one identity of relationship to all parts of space nature as the space as the semi-nature of itself, at the same time as a complete nature of relationship to itself, as science really shows. We are really of nature of volume. They have everything we need to say offensively. They even pretend if they know they've done things bad against people, and they sustain that. They make problems, reactions, behavior that they lie about. See, we already did too. That's why they have all these problems. That's why really they're blaming on they're maintaining what has been sustained that was never relented. Unprecedented is this path since before our nation's pounding drums. So our founders chopped down cherry tree, or chopped. I don't bring that into it. Chopped down the fake branches, but only to extend. That's why they left slavery in collusion north and south, and that's still not explained because the explanations of it are still tools of criminal insidiousness, way worse than tools. Fake legion be no fools. Awake as native one. Religion, relingo. See, our fact, treatment, nature, quality, our lingo, our speech, our convictions, our premises treatments, our sequence treatments. They are recorded, you know, criminally foreign influence, forced that way. WFSB attached me to fake conversation, attached my family member to fake words when there weren't at all, after there were already federal crime acts with federal criminals against them that they beat. My father beat a whole bunch of federal criminals in an LLB case, stealing people's pension money, stuff like that, involved with police forms, overt criminal enterprises, and collusion through time, recorded proven. Because we have a whole bunch of nations sick together with all kinds of natures of industries, like construction sites. Those people recorded and confessed and demonstrated involved with Local 230, further with Weathersfield Police, a whole bunch of ways, facilitated the crimes with child offenders, with their own uses of their own kids into branch, because they already attached me to fake conversations with them, illusions that they already had interjected from former director of the FBI down, uses criminal of a whole bunch of people tied to someone who came into fourth grade, who lives in my area with houses associated with a Detective Dillon, and with judges retired and standing, courts, prosecutors retired and standing, and associated with people with my schools, federal crime rules, with databases, with drugs associated with that, uses of people that didn't even go to my school, but they lived around it, involved with identity crimes, theft crimes, crimes of databases, verbal federal crime rules, natures of identity theft. People, these are also people with my two speech teachers in senior year, and which I had to do twice. I didn't have to. It was my reaction to a whole bunch of people that the same ones that were facilitated criminal uses on and off the other campuses I went to, criminal uses of on and off other campuses I didn't even go to, same way. He made pray. See, we have natures of jobs, people that lifted to industries that came through criminally foreign influenced identities of police departments, identities of leaderships, estates, and areas criminally foreign influenced modern nations, originally and still. Can't defend that. Their roles with Caldor in the past, associated with the Morrow family, and with the whole bunch of John DeMorrow, Paul DeMorrow, in other words, Paul Love too, and people with CCSU, a whole bunch of people associated intercities criminal uses of the titles, the identities of everyone. See, everyone's a victim predator, and they're maintained blaming it on other things, others themselves they already have. So when they have kids from these locations, intercampuses, they never had real science, real proper time treatments. Time is used criminally too fast, too slow. With what is intercampuses, everyone, that's the job though. I need to make a living though. Well, they're making a living on what is worse than entrapment, worse than torture, worse than nature's a whole bunch of nature's of bonded identity thefts on these areas. That's why, so we admitting this. We're also this way we could do this modern nations at once. We could admit a nature to afford things that we could never afford for free. It wouldn't even cost anything. We all agree. We would change the fact cheaping nature phenomena. People couldn't even fathom what we could do. Put that dome up, build the thing inside of it, take that off, fill it, rivers, controlled water. It's gonna flood. It's gonna go this way. Then be controlled, and revealed, not controlled that way. Control led by the identity that is attached to all things at once, and that is through a semi-nature of itself, that is simultaneously bonding individual, grouped, and all identity of value progression of space at once, as one identity of relationship to itself, which is also even greater than that, as a complete nature, semi-nature relationship to itself, as a simultaneous nature, so we could discern this. Not only the Trinity, but this complete identity of relationship to itself, inherent to those three semi-natures of a volume, bonded also by two other natures of semi-natures of sequence too. There are sequence of natures of volume. So, so in other words, we could claim bottoms by drawing them, by admitting them this way. And this is this changes the nature of what they call legislation, because they're still child abused. They're still victims of what is intersciences with physical delusions, with criminally foreign fact treatments, and with exploitations of that already long invested. So we have natures of statutes leveraged against integrity in the nature of impositions, intercampuses, and suburbs, simultaneously, distinctly, and non-distinctly from the ones in the urban areas. That they won't let that demonstrated, because the people in the urban areas and the ones in the suburban areas are in collusion, from the former the director of the FBI down, with a whole bunch of nations criminally involved with psychology, with methods and natures of crimes recorded, facilitated together, uses of on-off relation. This is uses of each age of fact nature. This is uses of the identity of each. They're kept misprising identities. Each branch of government, each individual of government, each group of it, each age, sex, pigment color. See, they put that in there for a game then. Make sure you guys play the identity as England. You see what I'm saying? This is a nature of extortion, simultaneously, distinctly and non-distinctly, onto leaders' voices, onto group voices, like religious leaders, and onto individual voices, like companies, natures of industries, all upon what is real individual value, which is everyone, which is real free speech, which is a nature of value, ties to our fact cheaping nature, that these abridged fact cheaping nature roles with pseudo positive as criminal and seditious nature. I'm not a lawyer, not police form, not a criminal. That we have the Justice Department recorded worse than entrapment, already invested evidence crime methods, natures, worse than what they put people away for their entire lives for, many ways. That's how easy it is with the weapons they're using. Like for four counselors, but they're blaming the wrong things and others, and they already did that. So they were already in collusion, needing to hide. Well, before they did that, was facilitated, needed to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, active, and progressive lies too, and worse. Let me come through. Please read the Santa Claus. We need applause, not we need to train. So admitting this is, again, we admit reliefs. We admit we admit revealed pantheism science of the science of prayer, which is the science of correlation nature, which is the science of the Trinity. Jesus Christ is about the juxtaposition of this nature of care, juxtaposed energy C, your C. Consciousness is high, raises inherent. C's tell. See, we need what is inherent C's tell, active C's tell, and progressive C's tell simultaneously understood. Yin yang. Alpha and omega, which is alpha plus omega or alpha minus omega, in relationship to what is value, to C plus or minus in relationship to this identity's identity of relationship to itself. That is both male and female at the same time. I mean, it is beyond that. Those are only a semi-nature as a complete nature. To see how that semi-nature is, each complete nature is simultaneously an unceasing semi-nature relationship to the value, to the identity of value progression that all things share per science. It's not supposed to agree about the name of it. It's supposed to agree about the discernment of its relationship to our quality of fact-keeping nature, and that begins with how we left out the ground. I'll gather round. And native rights this way. It was an organized crime method against the identity of relationship. Is an organized crime method against the identity of relationship as real value that each person is, which is only as native. If it's not as native, then it says criminal and seditious nature. Everyone's a child of abused, victim, predator with fact-keeping nature. This is science. I'm using what is true always and not denying any exceptions. This is an identity of relationship to the ground that is recorded criminally for and influenced. It is recorded with justifications of it worse than delusions wrought and long already having been exploited so. Per torture method, per fake care method sustained, not one is trained. So we have states that have like healthcare deserts. So, those natures of impositions are tied to a whole bunch of pseudo medical, a whole bunch of natures of crimes associated with Fox Connecticut News, please. Their sources, interbranch, their roles with interbranch crimes with medical corruption because of anomaly where they're not supposed to speak things, so they've just been faking things in the databases through time. These are database crimes roles with what is really tied to the interstate's problems with child offenders. You think we would still have these offenders if we had legitimate uses of technology and things like that? They're recorded using it for faking things. They put the name of technology, put a quote, and fake things for identity theft rackets rolls, all kinds of forging names, switch names, falsified police reports, intercities, interbranch police, and collusion, their family members, especially ones in the same with the Wethersfield Police Department, like two Mendes Police, Wethersfield Police Chief, retired and standing detectives associated with them federal crimes with databases, with each of the classes I was in, with each of the schools I was at, and especially regarding those two, for example, regarding those two speech classes. And these are people facilitated to crime rolls leading up to and in the Trade Center attack. Uses of the sensibilities. These are where they exploit where they originally instill force worse than negotiated with terrorism. Nego- Worse than negotiated with worse than terrorism. This is an organized crime method that is multi-front, simultaneously sustained. Not one has trained. This is really what caused the shootings in New Haven and Hartford. All they have to do is open their eyes and be honest and use correlation nature's trinity here, and I'll show you this. The people associated with criminal uses of these campuses, like Yale and like Trinity from off them, associated with FBI, criminal uses of the FBI. What facilitates them needing to be that to hide their live progressions and actually recorded nature is a whole bunch of nations maintaining this the outcome they're here for other regions too. Everyone also invested in layers, valuing everyone, blaming the real causes of it on other things other than themselves. So then we could have a gaming consensus. We could stack means in to liberate not just these locations, but the people around them. All of a sudden, have natures of relief, everyone at once, and the whole agenda of this system, pantheism, the science of it, Re-lingo with it, is to reveal an identity of the value of the identity of relationship that the ground has to our quality of fact treatment nature, where it's going to make the ground and the water's relationship to it and the rest of nature, where it's going to cause evolution. Where it's going to have the means to. It's going to have an identity of relationship to the ground capable of doing that. What's already set up for foods and affordable stuff like that, we could stack into that now. We could do all things. We could agree as a species. We know how many natures of impositions we take off. Because here and there, they don't understand identity. They still write. We have criminally foreign influence takes on American history recorded. They have the identity of our founders stolen in our faces. That's why Mao Zedong, demonstrably, we're not supposed to write about him. I believe for his wishes. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't mean, in other words, he didn't have. How could he have free speech? There was a breaching organized crime already entrenched. Individual nations grouped and together grouped, bonded as an identity of negative value, nature, progression, self-value. No one realized that semi-ancient people realized that if they could get the original nature of sciences defended, not valuing how we are why we are a bonded simultaneously species, individual, everyone, and grouped, everyone, and species, everyone, simultaneously. This is not only to see the difference between positive and negative, but it's supposed to see it as three different ways at once. By one complete identity's complete nature of relationship to itself. So, in other words, we're not asking faith. So this is not imposing on any religion. This is because all the religions are imposed upon by intersciences victims of what told them, that's the perfect world. That's why we word it that way. And everyone missed how such was exploited, was and is. Forgiveness is for this. So they knew then that they were going to create a fact treatment nature racket. They were going to, they methodically invested, they were going to make pseudo positive natures of not just sensibility, the nature of volume, our fact treatment nature, as criminal and citizen's nature, self value, as an engineering. So ancient gaming system, you don't have to play that. Let me be a species coach, and we'll use this idea, and then we give the people the place to, you know, legislation is a phenomenon recorded, used as a breaching tool to measure and maintain self-value, breaching screen roles. Pseudo-patriotism roles, real patriots, but pseudo-patriots where and as and how it counts in relationship to quality of fact, treatment nature where needed. Because everyone's already invested to defenses of themselves, each position of the fact treatment nature. Can't do that and defend us at the same time from what exploits that. Because it's reliant upon treatments of positive that aren't positive. That's not really science. They're reliant upon research and theory when what is true always and not denying any exceptions reveals what is really, that's really scientific method. Scientific method reveals what really was self-value and is self-valuing the real causes of the shootings in areas blamed on other things, others themselves, including the shooters, because they're using the shooters to pretend they did things that they didn't also, and to pretend that you know what led up to it looks other than it really is, because this shows how this is all tied to how state scenarios are maintained, actually recorded, criminally foreign influenced, and it's the phenomenon, thank God, of simultaneously, distinctly, and non-distinctly. So, non-distinctly, in other words, thank God, being the same way there. So we have to counter the same things there and here. And they know that, but who's trying to counter it can't do it because they're furthering it. They don't understand because they're just jobs, time, treatments, always too fast, too slow, all engineered, relying upon the perfect world of Forsaken. Fake positive. It's who you know, not what you know. How we teach anyone about American history is about what you know, not the most you know. In other words, and it's about these three things: the identity of the relationship to the ground, to our quality of fact treatment nature. It's about our quality of fact treatment nature with this organized crime method against it. This is against identity. Identity is the discernment of positive and negative because it's the discernment of itself and its identity of relationship to the identity that is inseparable from all things. Its identity of relationship to itself. That's why we all need water. We're not just, this is one nature of volume and demonstration to us of the nature of volume. Every nature of volume is a nature of volume slash the nature of volume as its, and as its identity of relationship to itself. The smallest part of its body is value to it. And as us, Spock sings, and what's below us. That's why we have to embrace with this game. This is real, the reality game. I'll stack each name. So I want to know who knows about business, and I'll beg if anyone would even just let me do it, a field test. I would go for the whole thing though, right now, the whole species. Play pantheism, because it only feels like game. To admit what's recorded, semi-ancient organized crime, sickly, distinctly hurting every modern nation. Not by accident, every modern nation blaming all that it causes There's negative value nature progressions, acts of nature, self-value, blaming the real cause of that, other things, selves, and others. Maintenance to means to get away with that. From correlation, still prevented free speech in sustained ways. Fake news, WFSB. See, they're fake news. Crime acts were used to hide life progressions because we have the investigators of the Trade Center attack also involved with a whole bunch of nations with it. There and here, maintained worse than negotiated with terrorism, tortured, where they can't talk about it because the identities of each modern position of what they call integrity and practicality they're all delusion wrought. They're all criminally foreign influence factory. They're all victims. They're all victim predators. And so we're and as and how we have simultaneously all the answers record natural. All the answer was already here. We're just not admitting it. We're not admitting it because there's a breaching organized crime upon us. Everyone's blaming on other things other than themselves. That's why the KKK is standing. That's why they're juxtaposed with undercover, military, police forms, whole bunch of medical natures of medical corruption, real sick courts. This prejudice hurt that kid. We have bad people with kids, attaching kids to fake locations because these are people with sick, all privatized each age of fact treatment ages treatments, elderly homes. What they call poverty. We're not going to let the elderly home go though. We're going to change the nature of medicine and of healthcare with this game. We'll train. Because logic and psychology, especially ones with badges, especially ones tied to databases, are involved with a whole bunch of natures of identity theft. Crime methods, for example, pretending research says that, and that's science. They're using that, they're making things up. The research of psychology is recorded criminally foreign influenced, long involved with various natures of courts, with criminal uses of medical databases and of child databases, facilitated to it. Individually into Brainfield Police Department. Whole criminally foreign influence in the Britain Superior Court through time. Further involved, Washington, D.C., Trade Center, intercampuses through time, on off CCSU involved, intercities, campuses with child offenders. Further on off the end of New Park Avenue. No, the other end of New Park Avenue